Hello, everyone, and welcome to AJRL's newest podcast, the AP Note, where we talk about Averill Park, New York's local music scene and beyond. My name is Chris Evans, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing two very talented musicians hailing from the capital region. Could you both introduce yourselves and tell me what bands you're a part of?
So my name's Wolfgang Balga. Both Andrew and I here are part of a band called Passing Grade. We're an alternative jazz and rock group out of Averill Park, New York.
My name is Andrew Gorman, and I also play with a group called the Trojan Horns. It's a brass band based out of Troy, New York.
All right. So my first question for you guys, what does music mean to you both? Do you find it to be an important part of your life? And if so, why? In what way?
I'll go first with that one. Music is kind of a huge part of my life. I'm currently studying music for my degree, planning on teaching music in the capital region. So it's been really important to me outside of that to get involved with performance and live stuff, recording stuff, to get the different medium as opposed to just the scholarly approach. But it's kind of my life revolves around music, so it's really great.
So I definitely approach music from a more casual sense. I think it's just important for people to have a creative outlet, and for me, music has been my creative outlet. Same kind of thing, recording, writing, and playing live.
How did you both get your start in the world of music?
For myself, it started as I think in school, just going through a generic public school music program. I played in the band, sang in the choir, that type of stuff. Kind of how I met the first few people, met you guys, met some other the band members. Sort of got the things off the ground there with the homegrown type of thing. So that personally for me, it was just going through public school and just programs that almost everyone can or should have access to. But it's a great way to meet people, find similar interests, and get stuff off the ground.
I think for me, it started more at home. Neither of my parents were big musicians, but my dad had played when he was younger, so there was always guitars and basses around the house, and I just kind of picked it up from what I could learn by myself and then online. And then, having a lot of people around me that were already pretty established, knew what they were doing, had taken lessons, had been in the music program at our high school. And then a lot of my friends, it just kind of, steamrolls from there, where it's you surround yourself with a lot of people that are interested in the same kind of things. So whenever you hang out, there's instruments around, and you pick it up from there, learn what you can from the people around you, and worked its way from there.
In terms of the bands that you're both a part of, Wolfie, for Passing Grade, how was that band established? And then Andrew, the same for you, but for the Trojan Horns.
So it kind of started during COVID, right as, quarantine started to dissipate a little bit. Andrew and our good friend Henry would, be at my house a lot, and we would plan to go fishing, where we'd wake up pretty early, 5 o'clock. We'd go around to a lot of the local, whatever it may be, ponds and streams and lakes. We would spend a lot of our time just fishing on small rowboats or on the sides of roads into a stream, and we never caught anything, so we kind of got a little discouraged from that. So we just go back to my house and be all right, we're just gonna hang out and make music. And I had a DAW. I had Ableton, the light version, so we were just recording into a cheap audio interface and making things that way, and then they just kind of picked up from there.
So your band started based off of fishing. That's awesome.
I guess so. More than anything, it's just we were hanging out a lot, and we were spending a lot of time doing nothing because we weren't catching anything, and we just kind of got from there. It was dude, this sucks. Let's just do something else.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, it also started probably around the same time. I'm more of a recent addition to the Trojan Horns group. It started with these two guys, a couple years older than myself, out of Troy High School, playing in the park or just in local places. They'd show up with their horns and just start playing. Eventually, I think they got another guy to be with them, but occasionally it'd just be the two of them. So they'd have two horns and a box that one of them would just kick for some percussion. And it started off as street gigs. until, they got a couple more members and started being like, a functional band with like rhythm, melody, harmony, all that stuff, as opposed to just like two guys soloing. And it eventually built up, so they're playing at like farmers markets and that type of stuff. And now we've worked our way up to be doing stuff in like bars and other types of venues, but we still go back to our roots in those local places, especially Troy Farmers Market. It's the huge one. It's like our home base. But yeah, just that creative outlet during COVID of like we need to go play some music.
And similarly for us, like having the high school as like a place to meet people with similar interests that were also making music was a big thing. Like our good friend Asher, who's the main producer of our music and one of the main writers and instrumentalists, he, around the same time, we were in a jazz studies class where we didn't spend a lot of time. It was a lot of like solo work, working on projects by ourselves. So we'd spend a lot of time in the library, just like hanging out. And at a certain point, we just started sharing like the recordings that we had done separately. And he had been making music by himself for a good amount of time. And at a certain point, we were like, we should, join forces, for lack of a better word, and, collaborate and release all this stuff.
If it wasn't already mentioned, could you both talk about the genres that your bands primarily perform and what your roles are in your respective bands?
Yeah, so the Trojan Horns is a brass band. It's very similar to like the style of Youngblood brass band, Lucky Chops, that type of stuff, which means it's pretty eclectic. It's kind of like funk rock oriented, just because of kind of what the instruments we're working with. But a lot of our stuff can be covers of like pop stuff. But we'll throw in a lot of like improvisational solos, kind of building from that jazz scene as well. I play the sousaphone, which if people aren't aware is kind of like it's a tuba that you just wear, so you just like walk around with it, which is great for playing parades or gigs outside. So I basically function as like our bass player, which is pretty nice, although it's a little more niche, but yeah.
So for us, whenever anyone asks, I always say like, indie rock or alternative rock, just because it's a very catch-all term. But we have about, at any given time, like 6 to 8 members of the band, and everybody has so many different inspirations and styles that they want to emulate when we're recording and writing. So I'd say like the stuff that we write is more alternative. Recently, the stuff we've been working on has been inspired a lot by like American folk and like contemporary like indie folk, so a lot of like Slaughter Beach Dog, going back a little bit, like a lot of like Townes Van Zandt, Jim Croce, stuff like that. But the stuff that we play live has a lot more energy and a lot more stuff going on. It's a bit more conducive to like live music, so it's a lot of classic rock, alternative rock, a lot of like Steely Dan, Grateful Dead, things like that.
Could you explain your role briefly?
I'm the guitar player.
It's interesting that you mentioned performing live, because I would love to know more about that as we segue into our next set of questions. Do you guys perform live, or do you mainly do recorded music? And if both, where do they differ?
So the horn band is primarily a live performing group. Started out as that and has been doing that consistently for a couple of years, if not a little bit longer. As I mentioned, farmers markets, bars, that type of stuff. We'll occasionally get a different type of gig out there. Sometimes we get like the gazebo outside, like the ice cream shop, or that type of thing. But we recently recorded an album that's coming out very soon. The only real difference is that because of our numbers, because there's only 5 core members usually as it stands, for our recorded stuff, we beefed up the sound a little bit, went out doubled tracks sometimes. So you get more of that like low end. You get a difference between like the solo trumpet versus just like playing along the harmony lines. That's kind of what you got to do when you don't have like guitars, pianos, and type of stuff. You got to fill out the sound a little bit. But for live stuff, yeah, we'll have a bunch of guests sometimes, depending on the area, to come fill out those other sounds. But it's pretty one-to-one, as close as it can be.
Wolfie, for you?
Yeah, I mean, building off what Andrew said, like the difference between live music and recorded music, there is a lot more opportunity when you're recording to fill out certain parts of the mix, double guitar tracks, build upon different ideas that you may have. And with playing live, it's like everybody's playing a certain thing, and you're building the sound through that. I say that we're more of a recording group just because our members are so spread out. A lot of people go to school in different areas throughout the state, so
That makes sense.
any opportunity that we have to play live, we take. But recently, it's more over the summer that we have an actual opportunity to play as a band together.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the more immediate area in the local music scene, what kind of places have the both of you played in? Whether it's town names, types of bars, things like that.
The Trojan Horns, as the name suggests, got their start in Troy, New York. I mentioned the Troy Waterfront Farmers Market is the huge one, one of the largest that we got in the area. And we're there pretty consistently, but we've been moving around a lot more. Some other local places in Troy, some places in downtown Albany, as far as like downtown Schenectady a little bit. So it's definitely that capital, like tri-city area. But yeah, you got some like niche places. I mentioned that ice cream place. Shout out to Emac and Bolio's down in Albany. Love playing there. So you get a little bit of a variety, but it's definitely just like this similar style, just public venue, indoors, outdoors, depending on the season and type of stuff.
Wolfie, where did your band first play live?
So I think our first performance was at an open mic at No Fun in Troy, and we played a punk set, which is a little different for us, but it was just a good way to get on stage together and get our feet wet a little bit. But in terms of where we played, it's wherever will take us, I guess. And last summer that happened to be the Albany Albany Farmers Market at Washington Park, so we'd play there every week. And it's just bars, things like that. Whoever is holding live music, we reach out. We try to get our name in the hat.
In terms of playing live, do either of you guys have one particular memorable, like positive experience and a negative one?
I certainly have a couple. I think the positive was just like the first like full 3-hour set I did.
Wow.
Because it just kind of got me used to the endurance I needed, especially kind of with a less familiar instrument and kind of getting used to how I got to hold that. But the negative was not long after doing the same set just at a different place, I split my lip open.
Oh,
and
man.
after like the second song, so I was just kind of like struggling through the.
That's brutal.
Yeah, getting through that, but now we've gotten used to it. It's kind of like a band joke now. It's like, hey.
Did you make it through the rest of that?
Oh yeah,
set?
I was
Oh
just
my
worried
God.
because I was wearing a white shirt.
Oh.
So luckily I had
Was it
layers
the
on.
Christmas?
No, the thing is, this has become a running joke because I'll start like getting a little bit close every time. But turn the negative into a positive. Power through it, and it turned out pretty well. So
Wolfie, positive and negative experience, memorable, anything from playing live?
So last summer we were playing at the Guilderland Farmers Market, and we had played the day before at the Albany Farmers Market, and after that show I went straight to Long Island, and then I drove back the next morning, and our show was at like 10, and I got there at 9:30, had all the stuff that from yesterday still packed in my car, and got everything set up, and I was like, all right, mission accomplished, I made it. And then as we start playing, there was something wrong with one of my pedals on my board, and it was just putting out this the heinous, disgusting, awful sound. It just was evil, hissing sound you ever heard. And I was like, what is going on? I still have no idea. I took the pedal off. I think I threw it out. I was so upset because we were mid-song, and I was just like sitting on the ground trying to figure out what it was, some live maintenance, and I was like, I took it off, took the whole pedal board apart, and just threw it to the side and plugged my guitar directly into the amp.
Mm-hmm.
So, that definitely wasn't the fondest memory. In terms of like...
You have a positive that sticks out?
For sure. We planned this show at a local park. We...
Could you be a little bit more specific as locals?
Oh, yeah. Some friends and I put together this show at Butler Park in Averill Park. It was about 4 to 5 local groups, and it started out as an idea because we knew that there was so much live music going on, so many bands in just this small area. I think there's like maybe 3,000 people in Averill Park, and out of that there's like a dozen bands, and it's a really cool thing we want to highlight. And so we put together this show at a park, all by ourselves, funded ourselves, organized it ourselves, and being a part of that and seeing the process all the way through, and like, because we had planned it months in advance, and it was just months of like putting it together, working with the town, working with other local organizations to get it funded and get food there, get other organizations together, and seeing it through and like actually getting on stage and being like, all right, we did it. I think that was probably the fondest memory I've had playing live.
That's incredible. And that's a wonderful segue, because I wanted to ask more questions about more of the specific local music scene, Averill Park, Capital Region, and beyond in that area. I was just wondering, do you think that Averill Park / the Capital Region in general, do you think they do enough, or they have enough opportunities available for small artists?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different organizations, radio stations, social media followings of people that want to promote local music. And I mean, I don't know if that's conducive to like other areas. I can't really speak to that. I've only ever, been around Albany and been around Averill Park. But
Right, just wondering about this general area.
yeah, I mean, it seems different. It seems like there is a lot of people trying to make music and trying to play live. And I think it's really interesting, especially like when you consider how small our area is, that there's so many people so many talented people that want to get out and make music and collaborate. And, I think that's something that as musicians and as creatives, we want to take advantage of.
Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, as I've gotten to work with more people outside of just Averill Park, expanding, more to like Troy, Albany, some people from other areas, still within the Capital Region, I've discovered how many people and places are not only willing, but like really try to promote the music scene. I know there's a lot of places in Troy and Albany that have live music all the time. There's one of the place I really like down in Troy, 518 Craft, who's been doing pretty consistent jazz jams pretty much every week. Anyone can show up and do some stuff, but there's a bunch of types of those events around the place that really help those local artists get started, whether they're solo or group. Get your name out there, get you meeting the people who you might want to play with or might be able to help you with like booking type stuff, people that have real like field experience. Even if they're not from here, you get some people who have like, I spent some time in New York City and like seen that scene, and then try to bring that back to the Capital Region and build it up a little bit. So that type of thing is really great.
Would you both say that this local scene, would you say that it's been beneficial for you, or maybe less so? Has it been supportive? Has it been scary?
Yeah, I mean, it's not without its anxieties for sure. But I say in the long run, it's absolutely helpful. I mean, it's the real taste of what you'd be doing. You win some, you lose some type of thing. But if you keep working at it, put your name out there, eventually, something's going to build up from that. And that's a really great thing to see. It's been really kind of assuring to know, hey, we're feeling pretty good about what we're making, and it seems that other people really dig it and want to hear it and are down to have us and help help us grow, but also the community grow and experience some other things out there. So I think it's an overall net positive, even without the setbacks. But that's every place.
I totally agree. I think there's so many, not only just musicians, but like venues and community organizations that are so encouraging, and it's great to see that other musicians want you to succeed. Like it's sort of like a rising tide raises all ships. Like people are more than anything want good music to be played and be made, and it's really great to see.
In relation to that, in terms of the local music scene, do you think there's anything that, if you guys would you change? Any areas of improvement or areas that you think might be too overwhelming?
I think the one thing that I've come across is that, especially in our own town, there's definitely an older audience that aren't as welcoming to
our own town being Averill Park.
Yeah. They're not as welcoming to newer styles of music, I suppose. We're good friends with a hip hop duo, Capital City Crooks, and they're great musicians. They put on a great show, and they played at AP Live, the show I was talking about at Butler, and yeah, some of the older audience was not very fond of what they had to do, what they said. But I mean, again,
Makes
I think
sense.
I think that's just a small hiccup. I think there is especially like there's a younger audience that is also just as involved in the music like locally, which I think is great to see.
Yeah, it's a great wide variety.
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. Is especially like working with, I want to say like younger musicians, early mid-20s, and maybe even a little younger. I mean, we all started when we were still in high school, like that type of thing. Is you kind of see the disconnect between the traditional people who love their 60s, 70s rock cover bands or know certain people who they'll always turn to, which kind of makes entering the scene a little bit of a challenge sometimes because certain places, stick to who and what they know. And depending on the vibe of their place or kind of what their brand is, switching it up and getting some of that, like, not necessarily experimental, but a little bit different types and genres of music can be a bit of a challenge. So the one thing that, like, I think could help out is just a stronger community-wide effort of, like, mixing younger and older audiences and sharing, everyone's ideas, especially with, like, something like Passing Grade, especially, as Wolfie mentioned, is kind of a fusion in sense of, like, newer hip-hop and, like, lo-fi jazz type of thing, especially on the production side, where live you can also be throwing out, like, Doobie Brothers, and it's a hit.
Yeah.
So,
Something for everybody.
A lot of these bands have that type of approach, so I think if everyone kind of opens their mind a little bit and is just like, you know what, everyone's here to share something, might not be exactly my thing, but, let's give it a shot and see what people have to put out there.
Absolutely. Now, really quick, favorite songs you guys have made. We'll go Wolfie, Andrew.
Well, actually, so there's this song that we're working on right now. It doesn't have a title yet. I think the working title is Blum. And it's a weird mix of like like traditional like American folk music that I was mentioning, but it also, I think thanks to our producer Asher, it has a lot of like elements of like dance music and like shoegaze rock, and it's a weird mix, and it's something that I haven't really heard before. I think it's because of like the amount of different inspirations all the members of the band bring that it's created a weird product. So I'm really happy with that one. I'm really excited to see that one complete.
Andrew?
Yeah, myself, it's hard to pick a favorite, but I got to say one of them that's up there is it's called Ode to Troy, written by our saxophonist Ozma Clamrock. It's also the where we get the title for our new album from. It's such an interesting thing. You got starting off quoting Ode to Joy, which is just, I think it's beautiful, but also extremely funny, because then you get thrown right off of it with what our saxophonist and the composer, I guess, decides to throw in there, just completely derail it, but it really comes together. So I think it's really cool, and there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like that on the more experimental side.
What's a favorite song to play live?
Well, I got to say, for me, I mean, even as the bass player playing the same like 4 to 8 bars, I got to say, I Will Survive. Gloria Gaynor, we do a cover of that.
Excellent choice.
And I know it's like a lot of groups cover that, and I know PG will sometimes do that as well, which is great. So I think it's one of those songs that kind of transcends genres. But it's so fun, especially getting the horns, like quoting some of those string lines. It's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't pick that, I probably would say that as well. There's a good energy to it. A lot of people know it, even if they just know the hook. It's like, it's a fun song. There's a lot of, it transcends genre in a way where like you can do a lot with it. You can do a lot of different stuff, and people will still know what song you're playing. But I guess for me, we have an original called Melba, and we play so few originals live that it's like, it's fun to see like one of the songs that you wrote come to fruition in a live setting. But it's also like, similarly, it has a really nice energy, and the whole band has their part to play in it, and we'll spend like an extra 20 minutes playing it, just like soloing and riffing on it, and that one's really fun.
Yeah, I can't be coy. I am the lead singer of Passing Grade.
He does a hell of a job.
I do love I Will Survive, and I do love Melba. Those are very fun ones to do live.
Chris, what's your favorite?
My favorite? Honestly, it might be Melba, because that one...
I already said that one.
I know, but We have that song recorded, and it is very short, and it fits a particular structure. But when we do it live, we try to take it as long as we can, kind of like a Grateful Dead jam band
Yeah,
sort
like
of thing.
I remember one time
We just let loose.
We were just jamming on it, at one of the guys' houses, and I busted out my saxophone and started playing the whole thing. It's just so catchy.
Any instrument we can add to it, it takes a whole new life.
And that's another thing to talk about, like the camaraderie between the musicians and the band.
Beautiful sense of community.
It's like there's bands like that members of bands that we'll play with that we play with just because we're friends with, and again, being friends, there's always instruments around, and we're always just like hanging out and playing. It's like they know how to play it, and we'll just like riff on it for a while and jam on it. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Lastly, for both of your guys' bands, anything you would like to promote? Live performances coming up? Any recorded music coming up? Let me know.
So yeah, we're working on a release right now. We don't have a time, like a release date for it, so I don't really have much to talk about there. But in terms of live performances, I mentioned it briefly that we did it last year, AP Live at Butler Park. We're doing it again this year.
Coming back.
It's only going to be bigger and better.
AP Live coming at you August 17th.
August 17th. It's an all-day event.
Second time's a charm.
There's going to be a lot of local groups, not only from Averill Park, but just from the wider capital region. It's a great way to support local music. We're going to have the high school is going to be doing like
Averill Park High School?
Yeah, they're going to be doing like an outdoor art exhibit. So there's going to be a lot more to do. There's going to be it's just going to be a great opportunity for people to, come out, get out of the house and enjoy a nice summer's day and listen to some great local bands.
All within Butler Park. That's awesome. Andrew?
Yeah, we're taking the Trojan Horns back to my alma mater and joining in on the fun August 17th. There
At AP Live? Absolutely.
The horns will be there.
Nice.
Bigger, better, everything in it. But,
Excellent.
In the nearer future, we're doing like a double feature back-to-back nights, Montreal and Burlington.
That's incredible.
April 25th and 26th. Kind of going on like our, we call it the international tour, where we just go to one city in Canada.
Exactly.
But we're promoting our new album, Ode to Troy. Just dropping actually April 5th, Friday, April 5th on Bandcamp, and then Friday, April 12th on all other platforms. So I got a bunch of originals and some covers in there, so be sure to check that out.
Everyone keep an eye out for new passing grade music and live performances, along as new Trojan Horns live music and performances. Just wanted to say once again, thank you very much for your time. I want to thank Wolfie Balga. I want to thank Andrew Gorman. My name is Chris Evans, and this has been the AP Note.